Welcome to Unraveled Mind. My name is Antonio and I'm here with you today to talk to you about values. Stay tuned and let's play. In this short video, I just want to go really quickly over what are values, why are they important, and a few distinctions that I make for myself and I think are very useful, and therefore I would like to offer them to you. And just to get us started, I would like to ask a philosophical question: is why are people different? We would not say that every human is the same. You would not say that I'm the same as you or your brother is the same as you. We are all individuals as human beings. Even though we share a lot of common elements, we would say that we are individuals and something sets us apart. And what would that be? And one of the reasons why we say that is that we react differently. We make different decisions than other people. We have different priorities. And of course there's a lot of reasons why people react differently in different situations, but I think values really is one of these key elements. And you can of course be more or less conscious of them, but they do play a role because they are more or less like your priorities, what you think is more important in life or in your life specifically, and therefore what you'll value more and you'll tend to prioritize. And just to illustrate this a little bit, I will just like to give you a few hypothetical scenarios and what would you do in these scenarios. And for the first one, just imagine that there's some problem at work, and what do you normally do in these situations if there's some problem at work? Do you stay over time and try your best to solve the problem? Or do you tend to be the person that, after working 8 hours, they leave work and they choose to go and spend time with their family instead of staying longer at work? Imagine a second scenario. Imagine it's Christmas and you and your partner live somewhere far away from your hometown and where your parents are. And what do? Do you choose to go spend Christmas with your parents in your hometown, or do you choose to spend Christmas with your partner? And finally, and one last hypothetical scenario I would like to give you is on a long day, after a long day on a Monday, do you choose to spend your evening playing video games, or do you choose to spend it making a YouTube video? And of course, in any of these scenarios, there's not... Even if people have or normally tend to have a preference, or they have to choose one answer over the other, most people would not say there is a right answer. There's no right or wrong answer. First, it depends on the situation. I didn't give you a lot of context. But also, we can respect someone who makes a decision different than ours. It's just about preference in this case. And values allows us to get a little bit of an understanding of how this happens in our heads. Because it can happen, as I said, a little. For most of us, we are not always considering every single decision that we take. It's too intensive for us to really rationally and deliberate over every decision that we have to make. And some decisions, they really don't require a lot of effort to make. They are really not important. But there's important decisions in our life, and even in those, sometimes we don't deliberate super deeply. We just go with our gut instinct. I think that is better. I feel better about this particular option. And that comes down to the values. And I think it's very important for you to be able to understand yourself, to know yourself to a deeper level, if you become more and more aware of your current values, what is important for you in your life, what do you value, what do you want to prioritize, that will allow you to understand why you make the choices that you make, and allow you to understand why your life is more or less taking these directions, because they are a representation of the decisions that you make, and the decisions that you make are a representation, at least in part, of the values that you hold. One disclaimer that I would like to make is that values are not set in stone. It's not written in your DNA, as far as I know. So they do evolve and change over time. And that's completely normal. And one thing that I will not go into a lot of depth in this video, but maybe I will cover in the future, is that it can be very useful for you to try and be more conscious about the values that we hold, because most of us, we never really thought about it. We just value things because of our upbringing, our environment, how life turned out, and the experiences that we've had. But that means you didn't really design your values, and therefore, if you believe me and you really see that they can have a very big impact on the decisions that you make, and therefore in your life, making sure you have a little bit more of control and you can design these values can be very helpful in you being able to design a future and a life that might be more aligned with what you say you want, even though deep down you are facing some resistance and things are not flowing as easily. It might come down to a problem with your values. But as I said, I don't want to go super deep on changing values. For now, I just want to create a common understanding between the people watching this video and what do I mean, and creating a few distinctions that I think are useful for people to consider and think about. And for me, values are not an absolute. Of course, people value beauty, people value love, people value freedom, people value a lot of different things, and normally they are positive things and they are virtuous. But for me, they exist on a spectrum. And of course, there's the way I like to imagine it is from a 0 to 10 scale, where 0 is the absence or the opposite of the thing that you value. So imagine that one thing that you value is connection with other people. For me, a 0 would be loneliness and the absence of connection. And a 10 will be deep connection with the people around you, with other people, with other human beings. That would be, for me, a 10 in this case. And one thing that's important to remember is that a lot of people say that connection is important. And a lot of people might even have it as one of their top values, and it can be a real big priority for them. But when I start talking with these people, for example, that choose connection as one of their top values, what I see sometimes, not always, but sometimes, and this is what I would like to offer you, is that they are not driven by a desire to connect. They are mostly driven by a desire to avoid loneliness. So if you go back to the scale, once again from 0 to 10 that I had, they are not being driven towards a 10, they are just trying to run away from a 0. And of course this makes sense. No one likes a 0, no one likes the absence of these positive things, no one likes loneliness, no one likes the opposite of happiness, sadness, no one likes most of these things. Most people would agree that I don't want that 0. But it's important for us to understand the difference between you wanting a 10 and you wanting to avoid a 0. Because another way that I think about this is as magnets, and you can either be repelled by the 0 or attracted towards the 10. But if you are attracted towards the 10, there's always going to be a push towards the higher end of the scale, or of this hypothetical scale from 0 to 10, because you are aiming towards the 10. It's the deep connection that really that you really value and that creates pleasure in your life, and you are willing to really prioritize it. Because if you really value connection with other people, first, one of the things that's really important is for you to show yourself, allow yourself to be vulnerable, because one of the ways that people build connections with other people is by showing vulnerability and accepting the vulnerability and respecting the vulnerability of the other people. And this is not easy, because we don't like generally being vulnerable, because that exposes ourselves to exploitation by other people. And when you meet a stranger, of course, I tend to be an optimistic, and I think most people tend to be optimistic. So when we meet a stranger, we don't assume they are there to exploit us. So we can show a little vulnerability, but you never know. When you're meeting someone and you are telling them about yourself, and you're trying to connect with this person by exposing your vulnerability, you are opening yourself to potential danger. So you really have to crave this connection and really want it, to expose yourself to these situations. As opposed to if what you want is really to avoid the being alone, you are never gonna go so far as someone that really is attracted to the idea of this value. What's gonna happen are gonna be repelled from the 0, and you're gonna end up somewhere in the 5 or 6 on this hypothetical scale, because the repel force is not strong enough for you to get to a 10. And another example, just to try to make this clear, that just came up, is really, think of the example of money or wealth. There's some people that really value wealth, and it's important for them, and they go out of their way and they sacrifice other things in order to acquire and build wealth. And in today's society, most people do value money or wealth to one degree or the other, because we are taught by society that money is essential. That's how you buy food, that's how you pay rent. So of course money is important for most people, and it's sort of a priority. But what I would offer to you is that most people don't value money. They just want to avoid poverty. That's what they are trying to avoid, is this feeling of not having any money. And of course, with that motivation, they will work towards avoiding that future, but they will never be able to build as much wealth as someone that's really motivated to build wealth, that has this deep desire. And I have a friend that is like this. I see that she really enjoys the art of making money. The idea of for her is like a game of how can I turn this idea that I have into something that generates money. And for her, it's not so much about the money; it's about the game, the excitement, the things that go around it. How can you compete with someone like this if the only thing that you want is the security to know that you will have enough to pay your bills, to buy food? You will never be so driven, and you'll never sacrifice or take the risks. In this case, it's not only about sacrifice, but it's also about taking the risks and trying new things, that someone that really is attracted to the idea of money and wealth, that they would do. If you are into personal development and self-help, and you probably already heard about this concept of values, maybe you even try to find out what are your values and what you really prioritize in life, I would really ask you to then consider this distinction that I made. Why do you value this value, whatever that is? Why is that important to you? Is it truly that you want to be a 10 in this scale, that you want to be completely aligned with this value? Or your main motivation is because you want to avoid whatever is on the 0 of that scale? And notice, you can always have a mix of both. It's not bad. But just notice that if your main motivation is avoiding the bad, you are never going to go much further than the middle of the table. Because to get above the middle, then you start to need this attraction to the idea of the value that you have in your life. So, and of course this is a guess, I don't know, but maybe if you're not getting the results that you want in your life, if there's something that you say you want, but you don't see yourself taking the action that you know would make you closer to embodying and living this value, just consider. Maybe the reason why you really want this value is because you are afraid of the lack of it. But it's not that you really want it for itself. You're just afraid of not having at least a little bit of it. So just consider that for yourself. I don't know your particular situation, but I hope this episode was useful. As I said, it's a little bit shorter than my usual, but I just wanted to film this because I think it's important and will help, of course, this distinction that I use and I use with my clients. I think helps us understand and excuse me, other concepts that I will talk about in the future. I might refer back to this duality between wanting something and being afraid of the lack of that something. And with that in mind, I thank you so much for watching. I will end it here. Feel free to share, like, subscribe. It really helps me, and it helps me also reach more people. So if you resonate with the things that I say, of course, I'm not saying anything original, but if you resonate with the way that I expose this information, if it has helped you, maybe it can help other people, and help commenting, liking, sharing the video is the best way that you can make that happen. So until next time, stay tuned.